obviously the most important trade relationship in the world now is China-US, the two largest economies in the world. And it is the case that China has a much stronger position than, say, Europe, particularly because of the rare earths, but also because China, unlike the Europeans, is not dependent on America for security. And that really colors the way that the Europeans deal with the United States. And I think what's happening actually is that both sides are trying to make themselves less dependent on each other. That you had at the sort of height of globalization, deep integration between China and America, and you still do. But I think that after the pandemic, partly that's a non-geopolitical thing, but they began to realize the dangers of reliance on one source and of extended supply lines. But then with the rise of geopolitical rivalry between the United States and China, the US is acutely aware that if it ever came to a conflict with China, they don't want to have bits of their economy dependent on China. And I think the Chinese, similarly, I don't know whether they're thinking about a war, but they're certainly thinking about pressure from America. And they've seen America put enormous pressure on particular Chinese companies like Huawei, or restricting the supply of high-end chips. And I think that China's also trying to reduce its dependencies on America. So you can see that with, for example, NVIDIA, where a big move of the United States was initially to stop NVIDIA selling its top chips to China. Now the Chinese are saying, actually, we don't want those top chips because we want to develop them indigenously. So the question in my mind, though, is the extent to which it's possible, because I think that there are levels of integration that are very difficult to unwind. Maybe I'm sort of a dreamy Western optimist. I don't believe it's inevitable that they'll clash. I mean, in a military sense, partly because it's just too dangerous with two massive nuclear powers. And I think we saw in the Cold War, when the levels of tensions actually were higher between the USSR and the US than they are even between the US and China now, they didn't go to war because they understood the dangers of mutual destruction. But there's a risk that might happen. There's the economic and trade side, and I think that China is well positioned. It's been the case for a long time now that there are more countries that trade more with China than trade with the United States, and that's only accelerating. And so you see, just to take a small example, Argentina, where the leader, Milei, is very closely ideologically aligned with Trump, but economically understands he needs the Chinese market, he needs Chinese investment, and that has restricted some of what he does.